They say a marriage is a house. You build it slowly, brick by brick, upon a foundation of trust. You raise sturdy walls of respect and cover it all with a roof of shared dreams, meant to shelter you from the storms of life. As an architect, I've always been drawn to that metaphor. For 15 years, I believed the structure I had built with my wife, Isabella, was my masterpiece, a testament to careful planning and enduring love. I thought it was built to last forever. But sometimes all it takes is a single, careless remark to illuminate the truth that the foundation was never solid, that you've been living in a beautiful facade, oblivious to the rot festering within. Lo, you really thought I would cancel my trip to Vegas because of your surgery? The words, spoken aloud, echoed in the cathedral silence of our kitchen. They hung in the air between us, shimmering with a cruelty so casual it took my breath away. I stared at my wife, who was hunched over her MacBook Pro, her platinum blonde hair falling like a curtain around her face. She was scrolling through flight options, completely absorbed, utterly oblivious to the fact that she had just taken a sledgehammer to the load-bearing walls of our life together. My name is Benjamin Hayes. I'm 42 years old and by most measures, a successful man. As a senior partner at one of Chicago's leading architectural firms, my professional life is a world of precision, of stress tests and load calculations, of creating structures designed to withstand the test of time. I had always applied the same principles to my personal life, or so I thought. The pain in my right shoulder had been an unwelcome companion for nearly a decade, a ghost of a collegiate baseball injury that never properly healed. I had tried everything: physical therapy, cortisone shots, acupuncture, even that bizarre cupping therapy that left me looking like I'd been attacked by an octopus. Nothing worked. Finally, my orthopedist, Dr. Evans, had sat me down 3 months ago, his expression grim. "Benjamin, we can't put this off anymore," he'd said, pointing to the dark, angry shapes on my MRI scan. "The rotator cuff is severely torn, and there are significant bone spurs. We need to get in there before the damage becomes irreversible." I remember nodding, my throat dry. My expertise is in steel beams and concrete, not tendons and ligaments. The medical jargon washed over me, but one sentence stuck out, underlined and in bold in my mind. "You will need someone to help you," Dr. Evans had emphasized, looking at me over his glasses. "For at least 2 weeks post-surgery, no driving, no lifting anything heavier than a coffee mug with that arm. You'll need assistance with dressing, showering, daily activities. The recovery protocol is critical for long-term success." That evening, I'd brought it up with Isabella over a dinner of salmon I had grilled. She was distracted, as she often was, her thumb flicking through emails on her phone between bites. As the regional sales director for a major tech firm, her mind was a perpetual whirlwind of quarterly targets, client acquisitions, and team management. "Belle," I'd said, using her old pet name in an attempt to capture her attention, "I need to schedule that shoulder surgery we talked about. Dr. Evans has an opening on the 15th of April. I'll need your help for a couple of weeks afterward." She'd glanced up, her blue eyes briefly meeting mine. "April? Yeah, that should work. Just put it on our shared calendar." I'd done exactly that. 3 months of meticulous preparation followed. I arranged for time off work, went to pre-surgical consultations, and rearranged project deadlines. Isabella had seen the appointments pop up on her phone. She'd even driven me to my pre-op appointment last week when my car was in the shop. There was no way she could claim ignorance. Yet here we were, 1 week before the surgery, and I was watching my marriage crumble like a building with a faulty foundation. "Isabella," I said, my voice strained but level, "we talked about this. I scheduled the surgery 3 months ago, for this specific date, so you could be here." She finally looked up, her perfectly manicured fingers pausing on the keyboard. At 39, Isabella was still stunning. A rigorous corporate wellness program kept her fit. Monthly facials kept her skin glowing, and her wardrobe was meticulously curated from boutiques whose names I couldn't pronounce. I had fallen in love with her ambition in college, her fierce drive. But somewhere along the way, that ambition had hardened, calcifying into something colder, something that left no room for anything or anyone else. "Benjamin, honey," she said, a hint of condescension in her tone, "it's an outpatient procedure. You'll be home the same day." Yes, but Dr. Evans was very clear about the recovery. I won't be able to dress myself properly, shower easily, or prepare meals. He specifically said I need someone to help me. She rolled her eyes, a gesture of exquisite annoyance, and returned her attention to the screen. "So, Hire a nurse for a few days. Or call your sister. My sister Megan lives in Portland, Isabella. And hiring a nurse wasn't exactly the plan when I have a wife. That's when she'd said it. The words that would sever the last frayed tendon of our marriage. Lo, you really thought I would cancel my trip to Vegas because of your surgery? It's not like they're removing your heart or something. You can order DoorDash. She actually said the letters, LOL. She didn't laugh. She spoke the acronym as if we were communicating via text message. And there it was. 15 years of shared history, of anniversaries and holidays, of promises made in sickness and in health, reduced to a flippant acronym and a suggestion for a food delivery app. I must have been silent for a long time, the hum of the refrigerator filling the void, because she eventually looked up again, sighing dramatically. What? Don't give me that wounded puppy look. Katie's been planning this bachelorette weekend for months. All the girls from the executive team are going. I can't just bail. It's her third marriage, I pointed out numbly. And her fourth bachelorette party. You skipped the last one for a sales conference in Denver. That was different. This is Vegas, she said, as if that explained everything. We have VIP tables at Omnia and Hakkasan. And Brian from Client Relations hooked us up with a penthouse suite at the Cosmopolitan. She flipped her hair back. Besides, your surgery was your choice. You could have scheduled it for another time. My choice? It's a necessary medical procedure I've been putting off for years, and I specifically scheduled it when I did because you said April would work for you. Isabella closed her laptop with a decisive snap and stood, smoothing down her silk blouse. Look, I'm sorry if there was a miscommunication, but I'm not canceling Vegas. Jessica and Tara are already talking about bringing me in on their new startup venture, and this is the perfect opportunity to discuss it without the corporate environment. This could be huge for my career. And what about me? I asked, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. What about our marriage? She had the audacity to laugh, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. Don't be so dramatic. It's shoulder surgery, not cancer. You'll survive a weekend without me babying you. I watched her walk out of the kitchen, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floors that I had installed myself in the second year of our marriage. I sat there, a strange, cold calm settling over me as the truth crystallized in my mind. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was who she had become, or perhaps who she had always been, and I had simply been too busy drawing up blueprints for a future that only existed in my head to see it. The architect in me saw it clearly now. The structure was condemned. It was time to plan the demolition. The next morning, while Isabella was at an early spin class, I made my first call. I canceled my surgery for the 15th of April and rescheduled it for May 20th, a month later. Mr. Hayes, the receptionist said, her voice laced with concern. Dr. Evans really emphasized the importance of not delaying this further. I understand, I replied, my voice calm and steady. But unforeseen circumstances have arisen. May 20th will have to work. My second and third calls were made from my home office, the door securely closed. The first was to Howard Klein, my financial advisor for the past decade. The second was to Patricia Reed, a divorce attorney whose reputation for being both brilliant and ruthless was legendary. A colleague who had gone through a particularly nasty split last year had recommended her. Both agreed to meet with me the following day. Isabella didn't notice a thing. Her universe that week was a whirlwind of online shopping for Vegas outfits, spa appointments, and endless giddy phone conversations with her friends about their itinerary. She was a planet spinning in her own orbit, and I was just a distant, uninteresting moon. On Thursday morning, she wheeled her designer luggage to the waiting Uber. She kissed me absently on the cheek, her lips cool. The fridge is stocked, and I left the number for that cleaning service on the counter if things get too messy, she said, checking her passport on her phone. I'll be back Monday evening. Try not to fall apart without me. She flashed the brilliant smile that had once made my heart race. Now, it left me cold. Have fun, I replied, returning her smile with one of my own. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. The moment the Uber pulled away from the curb, I went to my office and got to work. The next 4 days would be my construction phase. Our financial situation was, like most aspects of our life, something I had carefully structured. We had joint accounts for household expenses, but our retirement accounts were separate. Mine was considerably more substantial, despite her higher salary. Isabella preferred spending to saving. Then there were the investment properties I had purchased and renovated over the years. The most significant of these was a 5-acre lakefront property in Wisconsin, bought last year with the intention of building our dream vacation home. Howard, my financial advisor, helped me map out a strategy that was fair but fiercely protected my interests. Mrs. Reed outlined the legal process, the state's no-fault divorce laws, and what to expect. By Saturday evening, my plan was complete. I had opened a new account in Isabella's name and transferred her fair share of our liquid assets into it. I had documented every financial contribution to our shared properties, creating a meticulous spreadsheet that showed the 60/40th split in my favor on our Chicago home's mortgage payments. I prepared a complete inventory of our household possessions, with approximate values, highlighting items that were legally my separate property, acquired through inheritance. On Sunday, I drove the 2 hours up to the Wisconsin property. Spring was just beginning to touch the landscape, the trees showing the first hint of green. The lake was calm, reflecting the cloudy sky like a mirror. I stood on the very spot where our house was supposed to be built, where I had envisioned morning coffees on the deck and quiet evenings by a stone fireplace. The vision was still there, but now it was different. It was quieter. It was mine alone. I pulled out my phone and called my friend Liam, who ran a construction company specializing in high-end homes. "Hey Ben, how's the shoulder?" he asked. "Surgery's been postponed," I replied, "but I'm ready to move forward with the lake house. Can you meet me at your office tomorrow to go over the plans? There have been some adjustments." "Sure thing. Everything okay with you and Isabella?" I paused, watching a pair of ducks glide across the water. "Isabella won't be involved in this project anymore," I said, the words feeling both heavy and liberating. "The house will be just for me now." There was a moment of silence before Liam, a true friend, responded without prying. "I see. Yeah, let's meet tomorrow. I'll bring the preliminary surveys we did last fall." When I returned home that evening, I spent hours printing documents, organizing files, and packing a suitcase with essential clothing and personal items. I slept in the guest room. I couldn't bear to lie in our bed, in the ghost of a life that was already gone. The Uber pulled up at 6:42 p.m. on Monday. I watched through the living room window as Isabella paid the driver and wheeled her now expanded luggage up the driveway. She looked relaxed, her skin sporting a fresh tan, designer sunglasses perched on top of her head despite the fading daylight. She didn't immediately notice my suitcase by the door, too busy checking her phone as she entered. "Hey, I'm back. Vegas was absolutely insane. You wouldn't believe what Tara did at the Bellagio fountain." Her voice trailed off as she finally looked up and saw me standing by the dining room table. Her eyes flickered from my grim face to my packed suitcase, and then to the neat stacks of paper arranged on the polished wood surface. "What's going on?" she asked, her tone shifting instantly. "Why is your suitcase by the door?" "Welcome home, Isabella," I said calmly. "We need to talk. Please, have a seat." She narrowed her eyes, instantly defensive. "Why are you being so weird? And what's all this?" She gestured at the papers. "These are documents you need to review," I explained, my voice as steady as a plumb line. "This stack pertains to our financial arrangements. This one is about the division of property. And this," I said, sliding a thin folder across the table toward her, "is a petition for dissolution of marriage." Her face went through a rapid succession of expressions: confusion, shock, anger, and finally, utter disbelief. "Is this some kind of joke? Some childish payback because I went to Vegas?" "No, Isabella. This isn't about Vegas. Vegas was simply the moment the lights came on. It made everything clear to me. Our marriage has been over for a long time. I just didn't want to see it." She threw her purse down on the table, the expensive leather making a loud thud. "You're being ridiculous. You're throwing away 15 years because I went to a bachelorette party? Who put these ideas in your head?" "This has nothing to do with anyone else," I said, maintaining my composure. "This is about us, about how we've grown apart, about your priorities versus mine, about the fundamental lack of respect and care between us now." "Lack of respect?" she scoffed. "Because I didn't want to play nurse for your elective surgery?" "It wasn't elective. And yes, that's part of it. But it's so much more. When was the last time you asked about one of my projects? When was the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about your job, your friends, or your needs? When was the last time you showed up for me the way I've always shown up for you?" She rolled her eyes again. "Oh, please spare me the poor, neglected husband routine. You're a grown man, Benjamin, not a child who needs constant attention." "See, that's exactly it," I said. a wave of weariness washing over me. You dismiss my feelings, my needs, my very existence in this relationship, and I'm done with it. She stalked to the bar cart and poured herself a generous glass of bourbon. My bourbon, a special bottle a client had given me. She drank half of it in one gulp. "So, what is this?" she demanded, waving her hand over the documents. "You've just decided, unilaterally, to end our marriage? You've already divided our assets? Who the hell do you think you are?" "I'm someone who deserves better than what this marriage has become," I replied. "And yes, I prepared a proposed division of assets. You'll find it's more than fair. I've transferred your portion of our liquid assets to a new account in your name. The details are in that folder. I'm taking the Wisconsin property," I continued, my voice firm. "I'm beginning construction on the house next week." "The lake house? My lake house? I'm the one who found that property." "You found it because your client's husband mentioned it at a party. I'm the one who purchased it, primarily with funds from my grandfather's inheritance, which legally remains separate property. I designed the house, and I handled every aspect of the transaction. And now, I'll be the one living there." She laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. "You think a judge will just let you take it? I'm entitled to half of everything, Benjamin. Actually, the prenup you signed limits what you can claim. But don't worry, I've accounted for the small portion that came from joint funds in the settlement amount. It's all documented." Her face flushed with anger. She grabbed the financial documents and scanned them, her eyes widening. "This can't be right. Where's the rest?" "That's your fair share, Isabella. Half of our truly joint assets, plus a generous additional amount to avoid a prolonged legal battle. This house will be sold, and the proceeds split according to our contributions. And I've already paid for a 3-month lease at the Montgomery, those luxury apartments downtown you've always admired. The lease starts tomorrow." She looked up sharply, the pieces finally clicking into place. "You've been planning this all along, haven't you? This isn't some spontaneous decision because of Vegas." "Oh, Vegas was the catalyst, not the cause," I admitted. "It forced me to see what I've been ignoring for years, that this marriage exists only on paper. We're roommates at best, strangers at worst." "And where will you be living?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'll be staying with Liam until the house sells." I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. She followed me, her voice rising. "You think you figured everything out, don't you, mister? Perfect planner? Well, you won't get away with this. I'll fight you for every penny, every property, every damn spoon in that kitchen drawer." I turned at the door. "You're welcome to try, but fighting will only drain the resources I've already fairly allocated to you. Be smart about this, Isabella. Take what's being offered and move on with your life. Isn't that what you want anyway? Freedom, without the burden of a husband who actually expects a partnership." Her face contorted with fury. "Get out." "I'm going," I said calmly. "The keys to your new apartment are with the documents." As I walked to my car in the cool night air, I heard something shatter against the closed door behind me, probably the bourbon glass. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a strange, hollow sense of peace. The future was a blank blueprint, but for the first time in years, I was the one holding the pencil. Liam's spare room was small, but it felt more like a sanctuary than the sprawling, silent house I had just left. He was a true friend, offering a listening ear when I needed it, and a quiet, understanding presence when I didn't. He clapped me on my good shoulder. "One day at a time, buddy," he said. And that became my mantra. The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. I threw myself into my work with an intensity that surprised even me. In the evenings, I'd meet with Liam to finalize details for the lake house or have dinner with friends I had long neglected. Isabella, meanwhile, was making the legal process a living hell. True to her word, she was fighting everything. Her attorney, a man who seemed to delight in chaos, filed motion after pointless motion. They contested the prenup, demanded a forensic accounting of my finances going back 10 years, and scheduled and then canceled settlement meetings at the last minute. It was a war of attrition, designed to wear me down. About 3 weeks after I left, I was driving back to Liam's when I passed our old house. There was a moving truck in the driveway. I parked across the street and watched as movers carefully wrapped our dining table. My dining table, actually, an antique piece I had inherited from my grandmother, and restored myself. Moments later, Isabella emerged from the house, directing the movers. She spotted my car and stalked across the lawn, her face a mask of indignation. "What are you doing spying on me now?" she demanded. "Just documenting the unauthorized removal of my personal property," I replied calmly. holding up my phone. That dining set is specifically listed as separate property in the inventory your attorney has. It's my grandmother's. It's been in our dining room for 10 years. That makes it marital property, she snapped. That's not how the law works and you know it. But go ahead, take it, I said, my voice even. Every item you remove in violation of the court's temporary orders is just another point against you in the final settlement. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a furious hiss. You know what your problem is, Benjamin? You think you can control everything with your plans and your documents? But life doesn't work that way. I'm not going to just roll over and accept your terms. Sorry, yeah. I never expected you to roll over, Isabella. I expected you to recognize a fair offer and act like a reasonable adult. My mistake. As I turned to leave, she called after me, her voice filled with a chilling bitterness. You'll never be happy. You'll build your perfect little lake house and sit there all alone with your precious antiques and your self-righteousness, and you'll realize what you threw away. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. That evening, I finally called Dr. Evans' office and confirmed my surgery for the following week. My shoulder was a constant, throbbing reminder of everything that had happened. Liam had offered to help during my recovery, and my sister Megan was flying in from Portland. I had a support system. It didn't include the woman who had vowed to stand by me in sickness and in health. The surgery went well, though Dr. Evans said the damage was more extensive than he'd initially thought. The days that followed were a blur of pain medication, awkward one-handed attempts at daily tasks, and the humbling experience of relying on others. Liam was a rock, driving me to appointments and ensuring I was fed. Megan stayed for a week, fussing over me, organizing my medications, and keeping my spirits up with her irreverent humor. Colleagues from the firm sent food deliveries and books. Through it all, there was only silence from Isabella. No call, no text, no acknowledgement that the surgery had even happened. It was the final, brutal confirmation I needed. Ending our marriage hadn't been a choice. It had been a necessity. 2 weeks after my surgery, my arm still immobilized in a sling, I received an unexpected call. It was Jessica, one of Isabella's colleagues, who had been on the Vegas trip. Benjamin, it's Jessica Thompson, she said, her voice hesitant. I hope it's okay that I called. I thought you should know something about that Vegas trip. My stomach tightened. Go on. It wasn't just for Katie's bachelorette party, she said, the words rushing out. Isabella was meeting someone, a guy named Julian Matthews. He's the CEO of that startup she's been talking about joining. I sat down slowly on the edge of Liam's sofa. I see. They weren't exactly subtle about it, Jessica continued. They had adjoining rooms at the Cosmopolitan. The bachelorette stuff was just a cover. Look, I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just thought, with the divorce and everything, you deserve to know the truth. How long has this been going on? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm not sure exactly, but at least since a tech conference in San Francisco back in January, that's when she first introduced him to us as a potential business partner. January, 4 months ago. While I was planning my surgery around her schedule, trying to save our marriage, she had been starting a new chapter without bothering to end the old one. The betrayal was staggering, yet in a strange way, it made perfect sense. It was the missing piece of the puzzle. I thanked Jessica for her honesty and immediately called my lawyer, Mrs. Reed. The information gave us new leverage. At the next scheduled mediation, Mrs. Reed artfully alluded to our knowledge of Isabella's new business venture and her partner, Julian. The effect was instantaneous. The fight went out of Isabella. Fearing the full extent of her affair would be exposed in court, she became remarkably compliant. By the end of the day, we had reached a final agreement that was remarkably close to my original offer. As we were preparing to leave, Isabella spoke up. I'd like a moment alone with Benjamin, if that's possible. When the door closed, we sat in silence. You know about Julian, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Is that why you're being so accommodating? To make me feel guilty? I laughed softly, a dry, tired sound. Not everything is about you, Isabella. The settlement is fair because I want this over with. Your relationship with Julian is your business. She studied my face, searching for anger or hurt. I felt neither, just a profound sense of emptiness where our marriage used to be. Our marriage was over long before you met him, I said, shifting my shoulder in its sling. I hope he makes you happy. I mean that. I'm sorry, she said finally, her gaze dropping to the table. About your surgery, I should have been there. Yes, I said simply. You should have. And that was it. A quiet, anticlimactic end to 15 years. The real bombshell dropped a few days after the divorce was finalized. I was working late when my phone rang. It was Julian Matthews. "I thought you should know what's been happening," he said, his voice tight with anger. "Isabella is not the person I thought she was. Since the divorce, she's been pressuring me to get engaged, claiming she gave up everything for me. I'm also finding out she's been lying about her financial situation, her connections, everything." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, unsure of why he was telling me this. "She's also been spreading vicious rumors about you," he continued, "saying you were controlling, that you emotionally abused her, that you forced her into a terrible settlement. I saw the agreement, Benjamin. She left it open on her laptop. It was more than fair. The stories didn't add up. I'm ending things with her tonight. I can't build a business or a relationship with someone I can't trust." I hung up the phone, a cold sense of certainty washing over me. The next evening, Isabella was waiting for me by my car in the office parking garage. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her perfect facade finally cracking. "You did this," she accused, blocking my way. "You talked to Julian, filled his head with lies." "I never spoke to him until he called me yesterday," I replied calmly. "He dumped me. This was my chance, and you ruined it. I had nothing to do with your relationship problems, Isabella. That's between you two." "You think you've won, don't you?" she spat, tears of rage tracking through her makeup. "You'll end up alone, Benjamin. No woman wants a man so boring, so predictable, so obsessed with his precious buildings." I sighed, the anger and drama finally feeling like nothing more than noise. "The feeling is mutual, Isabella. Now, please move." As I drove away, I saw her in my rearview mirror, a small, angry figure standing alone in the vast, empty parking garage, growing smaller and smaller with the distance. The final loose ends of my old life were tied up in a call from Mrs. Reed 6 weeks later. The Chicago house had sold. My portion of the funds had been transferred, and Isabella was leaving the city. She had filed a notice of change of address with the court. She was moving to Boston for a new job. "She's requested that all future communications go through her attorney," Mrs. Reed added. "Fine by me," I replied. "I think we've said all we need to say to each other." That evening, I drove up to the lake house. The progress was stunning. The structure was complete, the windows installed, the roof finished. Inside, the drywall was up, and the walls were painted in the soft, warm grays and blues I had chosen. The massive stone fireplace I had designed dominated the great room, waiting for its first fire. "What do you think?" Liam asked, meeting me at the door with a proud grin. "Another 3 weeks and you can move in." I walked through the room slowly, taking it all in. This was mine, not ours. Mine. A home built to my specifications, reflecting my tastes, my needs, a structure built on a brand new solid foundation. "It's perfect," I told him. "Absolutely perfect." 3 weeks later, I moved in. The first night, I grilled steaks on the deck for Liam, my sister Megan, and a few other friends who had been my scaffolding during the demolition of my old life. We sat around the outdoor fire pit, drinking beer and sharing stories as the stars came out over the lake. "To new beginnings," Liam said, raising his bottle in a toast. Later, after everyone had gone, I stood alone on the deck, listening to the gentle lapping of water against the shore and the distant call of a loon. The house behind me was quiet, a blank canvas waiting to be filled with new memories. I thought about Isabella briefly, a fleeting, detached thought. I hoped she would find what she was looking for in Boston. Some structures aren't meant to last forever, no matter how carefully you design them. The key is to know when to let them go and have the courage to build again. My phone buzzed with a text. I expected it to be Liam or Megan, checking that I was okay. Instead, it was from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Benjamin. It's Hannah from the Henderson Project. Heard you finally moved into your lake house. Congratulations. If you're still looking for an interior designer, I'd love to see the space sometime. Hannah Wilson." An interior designer I'd worked with on several projects. She was talented, smart, with a quirky sense of humor I'd always appreciated. I hadn't seen her since before everything had fallen apart. A slow smile spread across my face. I looked out at the silver path the moon was casting across the dark water, and then back at the warm, waiting lights of my new home. I felt a sense of possibility I hadn't felt in years. I was just Benjamin again, an architect with a blank set of blueprints, standing on solid ground. I typed back, "Thanks, Hannah. The house is still pretty bare bones. I could definitely use some professional advice. How's next weekend look for you?" Her response came almost immediately. Next weekend would be perfect. Looking forward to it.